covered one side of the East. Now it's time to get to the AFC side of it as we get to our AFC East preview. And I'll just kick this thing off real quick because I have the Miami Dolphins. And I am really high on the Dolphins, but I also tried to remain realistic. And so the following is my predictions for the Miami Dolphins schedule this year. So starting out week 1, they play at home against the Jags in an in-state matchup. I'm going to say that the Dolphins get a win there. Then they play at home against the Bills, toughest matchup that they'll have to start the season. I'm going to say that they actually get a W against the Bills because we remember last year the Dolphins had a great start to the season, kind of rocky towards the middle, and then they made the playoffs, had to go play in negative degree weather because they fell off during the season. But I got them starting 2-0. Then that takes us to week 3 at the Seahawks, formerly known as Manny Anderson's team. And I'm going to say that the Dolphins get another win here. So the Dolphins move to 3-0. Then they play at home against the Titans. I'm going to say that's another win for the Dolphins. So that's 4-0. At the Patriots week 5, that could be tricky. Division matchups always are. But I don't know if I'm believing in Drake May quite yet, especially given the weapons that he has around him are kind of lacking. And so I'm going to say that the Dolphins to start the season 5-0 going into their bye week at week 6. Then that takes us to week 7 at the Indianapolis Colts. I do believe in Shane Steichen, a guy from El Dorado Hills, California. However, I'm going to say that the Dolphins keep rolling with some rest, and the Dolphins start the season 6-0. So then that takes us to week 8 at home against the Cardinals. I mean, Kyler Murray could get things going with Marvin Harrison Jr., the clear offensive rookie of the year. But I'm going to say the Dolphins keep rolling because I really like this Dolphins team. And so that starts the Dolphins out at 7-0. Another great start to the season for the Miami Dolphins at 7-0. But this is where things get a little rocky, kind of like we saw last season. So then that takes us to week 9 at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are going to get their lick back. This is the Dolphins' first loss, so this drops them to 7-1. At the Los Angeles Rams, as much as I'd love to be a biased hater as a 49ers fan, I'm going to say that the Rams get the win here. Dolphins drop 2 in a row after they start the season 7-0. Because you're playing on the road 2 weeks in a row. You got to travel across the country after probably having a tough division loss in Buffalo. So I'm going to say that the Dolphins lose in LA against the Rams. That takes us to week 11 at home against the Raiders. I'm going to say that's a dub. Week 12 at home against the Patriots. Another dub. Then that brings us to week 13 at Green Bay against the Packers. And I'm not huge on Jordan Love, but he's going to do enough in this game. And I'm going to say that the Packers get the win. This is, again, where it gets really interesting because then week 14, Dolphins are at home against the Jets. I think that Aaron Rodgers, if healthy, is battling for a playoff spot at this point, could very well be battling for the division. We'll hear what you guys have to say about the other 3 teams. But I'm going to say that the Jets get a win in Miami. So that's 2 losses in a row for the Dolphins and 4 of their last 6 after starting the season 7-0. That brings us to week 15 at the Houston Texans. Coleridge Bernard, Texans win. So then that brings us to week 16 at home against the San Francisco 49ers. At this point, the Dolphins have lost 3 games in a row, 5 of their last 7. Are they really going to lose to the 49ers? Is Mike McDaniel going to lose to the guy that he used to coach for? Hell yeah, he is. Kevin already knew. So the 49ers win in Miami against the Dolphins, even with the I forgot to write down the time for this game, so it may not be a day game. But even with the advantage at Hard Rock Stadium, I'm going to say the 49ers win on the road in Week 16. And so that's 4 losses in a row, 6 of their last 8 for the Dolphins after I have them starting the season 7-0. They finished the season with their last 2 games on the road at the Browns, at the Jets. As much as I like the Browns and their defense, I'm going to actually say that the Dolphins break their losing streak here, Week 17 at the Browns. And then week 18 at the Jets, the Dolphins get their lick back from losing at home against the Jets. And so I have the Dolphins at 11-6 overall. I think that the AFC East will be highly competitive, except for the New England Patriots. And so 11-6 could win them the division. If not, it'll get them one of those 3 wild card spots. Hopefully for them, they get a playoff game. If they're a wild card team, then they won't. So they got to win the division to at least get a home game. But I got the Dolphins at 11-6 after a 7-0 start. But that's the way I got it. Any thoughts or comments, guys?
No, we all know when it gets cold, Tua starts to piss down his leg. So a lot of those games are going to be cold.
I'm curious to see the new additions for the new additions for the Dolphins. You know, having to replace a bunch of guys on defense. The guys that they drafted, Taj Washington, USC Trojan, would like to see what he looks like in the Mike McDaniel system. But yeah, pretty much, Kevin, I think we're all kind of thinking the same thing. Whenever it starts to get cold outside, Tua does not have the month of May.
It's cold.
So, yeah, I mean, the Dolphins, they're gonna be fast. They'll put up points. I mean, hell, there was a point in time when Tua threw for like 5 touchdowns, 407 yards. People were like, he's the MVP. It was nice, cool outside. It was sunny outside. But you know, they play in a division with a bunch of teams that have a lot of cold weather cities. So that's why whenever they travel, it's usually trouble. Especially, we would imagine that the Dolphins would be on the road if they were to get to the playoffs. So I want to see what they look like against playoff teams. Are they going to be able to perform against those guys? Not even just cold weather games. Against playoff teams, will they be able to hold their own?
That's a great point. And something else I will add with all the Tua discussion is that I watched an interview with him with the Dan Le Batard show today on YouTube. And yep. Tua really seems to be locked in. Like, he has a completely different mindset. You can tell that being in Mike McDaniel's system and having a coach that has confidence in you and is just going to give you positive reinforcement rather than opposed to Brian Flores, where Brian Flores was saying, you suck, you're terrible, and all these things under the sun to try and motivate him with reverse psychology. Tua doesn't have the mindset that Tom Brady does. Like Tom Brady said back in January, if a coach is telling me I suck, that just motivates me even more. It makes me want to go even harder. Tua doesn't have that mindset. Tua needs that positive reinforcement. And that's exactly what Mike McDaniel has brought, not only with his great play calling and schemes under the Shanahan tree, not the Shanahan-McVay tree, under the Shanahan tree. He brings a lot besides just positive reinforcement. And I have a sneaky suspicion that Tua is going to have a big year this year. Saying he's a Pro Bowler isn't saying much, but I think that he'll have a big season this year. So I got the Dolphins at 11-6, as Toddy was saying. 11-6 probably gets them a wild card spot unless they have the tiebreakers to win them the division. It really depends on what happens with the Jets and the Bills. But I see a big year coming for Tua. Tyreek Hill, #1 player in the NFL, according to the NFL Top 100. Jalen Waddle.
Hey, y'all thought I was crazy for not having Patty on #1. Y'all call me crazy.
I mean, just because. Well, I will say that the players are the ones who vote on that, right?
So I won the Super Bowl.
Jason Tatum won the finals. We're not gonna say he's #1.
It's NFL season, Kevin. It's football season now.
I will say this about the Dolphins. I mean, 11-6. That's respectful. I think that, again, I like to look at things like this: are teams taking steps backwards or forwards? And when it comes to the Dolphins, I think that they are going to be more poised than ever. I think that Tua's he's a heavily criticized quarterback, rightfully so. I mean, you got all these weapons around. You got Tyreek Hill, obviously, the
Jalen Waddle,
#1 player in the NFL. You got Jalen Waddle. You got Devin A. back there. You know what I'm saying? Raheem Mostert. He's still there, right? Did Mostert leave?
Yeah, I think Mostert's still there. I'll have to fact
check there.
But yeah, he's still. Yeah, I'm saying, yeah. I mean, the Dolphins should still have a high-powered offense. Let's just call it what it is, right? Anywhere Tyreek Hill is, that offense is going to put up numbers. It's going to put up a lot of yards, right? So all Tua needs to do is just continue to just do what Tua does, and you know what I'm saying, be sharp. Don't turn the ball over. You don't play hero ball, and they'll be just fine. Because if you look at the division, like when teams in your division are getting worse, you have the advantage. You think the Bills got better when they got rid of Stephon Diggs? The answer is no. Whether he had a great season or not, which he actually didn't have a bad – he had a weird season because it was inconsistent, but, like, Stephon Diggs didn't have a terrible season. It ain't like he went off like 700 yards and, like, 3 touchdowns. So he had a sneaky, solid season, okay? But he's gone now, okay? Now Josh Allen has to literally put the team on his entire back because James Cook ain't going to be the guy running the show. And Dalton Kincaid's great, you know what I mean? And I think he's an awesome tight end, but he's not going to be – he's not a Travis Kelce, a Mark Andrews, a Rob Gronkowski type guy is going to completely change that offense. So the Bills got worse. They got worse. What's that face for?
I feel like you conveniently omitted George Kittle.
Oh yeah, I mean, because why would I? The guy's never really healthy. You know what I mean? Like he's off and on. But anyways, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like Dalton Kincaid, he's a great asset to the Buffalo Bills, but he's not a guy who's gonna make that team great. He's a great asset, and that's it. So Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, from my perspective, have gotten a lot worse. Losing Stephon Diggs makes any defense they play not have a problem. You know what you got to do. Get to Josh Allen. Get him down.
1,100 yards and 107 catches.
Yeah, and he had a down. Remember he had such a silent year. Nobody was talking about that. Still went over 1,000 yards, over 100 catches. Like
8 touchdowns too.
That's a huge loss.
Yeah.
It's massive. You know what I'm saying? Like you had him and Gabe Davis, bro. Like the Bills have gotten significantly worse. The Miami Dolphins did not. The Patriots, we'll get there when I go on my Patriots. My Patriots take when it comes to their record. And then who else you have? The Jets, which, we'll get there obviously as well. So I think the Dolphins, 11-6 is very respectful. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 13 games. I wouldn't be surprised at all.